what has happened today is that we are completely lawless. And I'm going to prove this, that this entire system is based on lawlessness. And everything that you do within it, while your mouth says one thing and our actions do another, that we are participating in that lawlessness. That is the purpose of today's study. Commandments of men, Isaiah 29:13, wherefore Yahuwah said, for as much as his people draw near me from their mouth, and with their lips they do honor me, but have removed their heart far from me, and their fear toward me is taught by the precept of men. Matthew 15:9, we get the correlation in what's quote-unquote called the New Testament. But in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of man. What's the word vain mean? You see it all the time. Vanity of vanity, vain. Imagine the vain thing. Well, let's define the word. How many people know what vain means? It's the force of men. Proud of petty things or of trifling attainments, elated with a high opinion of one's own accomplishments, or with things more showy than valuable. Conceited, fruitless, ineffectual, all attempts, all efforts were vain. Empty, worthless, having no substance, value, or importance. It's a show of men. We're in a lawless society, folks, and I'm talking about from the foundation out. The purpose of today's study is to show that the lawless already rule. I intend to show that anarchy is the true nature of our government and that deceit and fraud is how it operates. Now, the only way I could do that, truly, is go pull, quote-unquote, their law and show you what's written in their law. And show you that their law states one thing, but they what? They do another. The purpose of showing this will end in a discussion of how any and all extremist viewpoints are used to further that agenda and goals of the system itself, while at the same time destroying all cultures and customs. The destruction of cultures and customs is all across the board. We have been taught many things, one side of the coin. That's the way the deceit works. They show you one side of it, they never flip it over and show you the other side. The kings of doublespeak operate in the world of implied. Let's define the word implied. Involved, contained, virtual. That's your virtual reality. It's not real. Though not expressed, the law is a hocus pocus. Doublespeak is negative truth. You hear this all the time. You have the right to remain silent. Simple enough. Deceit, literally a catching or ensnaring, hence the misleading of a person, the leading of another person to believe what is false or not to believe what is true, and thus to ensnare him. Fraud, fallacy, cheat, any declaration, artifice, or practice. An instrument is like this piece of paper right here from the IRS. That's an instrument. In their definitions, this is an instrument. It's a tool used to deceive you. The right to remain silent. Everybody's heard the Miranda rights, right? So what I put this in here for is to show you how the kings of doublespeak work. All right, so the Miranda rights would read this way. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say or do can and will be held against you in a court of law. You have the right to speak to an attorney. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you. Do you understand these rights? They have been read to you. The Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution protects people from being compelled to give testimony that could incriminate them. This is not the same as saying that a person has a right to silence at all times. In some situations, police may use silence itself as incriminating evidence. Oh, can you imagine that? So let's do the doublespeak. You have the right to remain silent. What's the legal maxim on silence? Silence is consent. Let's read it straight out of the law books. Q tacit consentor videator. He who is silent is supposed to consent. The silence of a party implies his consent. Straight out of Black's Law Dictionary. Q tacit consentor videator. He who is silent is considered as assenting when his interest is at stake. Now, let me ask you something, folks. When another party comes and attacks your person, is your interest at stake? When the IRS, the government, or anybody else tries to fraud you into something, is your interest at stake? Well, yes, it is. It's your private individual rights that are at stake. And for you to just sit there and say nothing means what? You've accepted it. Fraud. Now, this is straight from their book, too. Listen, folks, one of the reasons why we define the terms from them is to set your mind at ease that your Bible is worded exactly how it is supposed to be, minus a few details here and there, but the law portion is to set you free. You just never read it that way because our pastors and preachers have led the flock astray, and they've all signed on the dotted line with the same beast system that is meant to enslave you. And as long as you've given money into their coffers, they don't care about your spiritual salvation. And that's just a fact. fraud, an intentional perversion of the truth for the purpose of inducing another in reliance upon it to part with some valuable thing belonging to him or to surrender a legal right. That's what fraud is. That's their definition. Well, how many times have you been frauded in this system? A false representation of a matter of fact, whether by words or by conduct, by false or misleading allegations, or by concealment of that which should have been disclosed, which deceives and is intended to deceive another so that he shall act upon it to his own legal injury. So let's go back to the Miranda rights. What should it read? If you want to have any rights, you need to stand up for them. Any kind of artifice employed by one person to deceive another. Well, let's find out what an artifice is, folks. That's from the Latin artificium. That's where you get your artificial, fake. A stratagem, an artful or ingenious device in a good or bad sense. In a bad sense, it corresponds with trick or fraud. Art, trade, skill acquired by science or practice. That means you're going into witchcraft, divination. It is the art, the skill, an instrument, a written document, a formal or legal document in writing such as contract, deed, will, bond, or lease. Anything reduced to writing, a document of formal or solemn character, a writing given as a means of affording evidence. How come your whole system of law, your whole system of living inside this country is based on a reality that you don't understand? The purpose of our study is to arm each man and woman, to ignite a fire with them, to let them know that the entire system is built to defraud you from who and what you are. They needed your consent the whole way. Your silence, your acquiescence to it is the reason why society is going to continue going the route that it's going, because we've asked for it. Presumptions and assumptions. Ignorantia, legus nenium excusa. Ignorance of the law excuses no one. So this is how they hide themselves, right? Do you see what I'm doing? We're reading the maxims. They tell you it's fraud, but the reason why we're not liable for it is because you're ignorant. You chose to be ignorant. Ignorantia, presumptio, ubi scientia, non probatur. Ignorance is presumed where knowledge is not proved. What's scientia? Scientia is knowledge. It's where the root word science comes from. It's knowledge. You've got true knowledge and false knowledge. Culpable ignorance is that which results from a failure to exercise ordinary care to acquire knowledge. These are all definitions out the Black's Law Dictionary, folks. What I'm showing you here is how they protect themselves from being liable for their fraud. Nil consentu tam contrarium est quam vis eticu metis. Nothing is so opposed to consent as force and fear. If you ever sign anything or forced to sign anything from a government agent, you sign it without prejudice and under duress. Why is that? Because you've made the document, which is their evidence that your conviction, because you signed your conviction. Every time you sign a ticket, every time you sign one of these government documents, you have convicted yourself and signed away your liability. That's what a signature is for. We've discussed this. The under duress, because nothing is so opposed to consent as force and fear. So if you're worried about your body and what you're going to do, that's how it's okay. Fraudulent or dishonest act, one which involves bad faith, a breach of honesty, a want of integrity, or moral turpitude. Now, would you say that this system is based on honor, integrity, and truth? No, it's not. They're dishonest. They're not in honor, folks. Fraudulent conversion, receiving into possession money or property of another and fraudulently withholding, converting or applying the same to or for one's own use and benefit, or to use and benefit of any person other than the one to whom the money or property belongs. So let me ask this. A fraudulent conversion would be the IRS wanting my wages and convert them into their property. How do they have any business with that? They don't. Let's go read that for ourselves. This is directly from tax codes. And what I want to do is clarify who owes taxes. And I've told you before, do not vote. Why aren't you supposed to vote? Well, your vote means you're part of the government. The only people that can vote or join the election process are those who work for the government. And the entire deal is about you working for the government. Let's read this. We're going to define the terms in the U.S. tax code, right? Citizens and residents outside the United States. If any citizen or resident of the United States does not reside in and does not have the principal place of business, that means the operating place of his business, in any United States judicial district, such citizen or resident shall be treated for purposes of this section as residing in the District of Columbia. Let's define trade or business. You have to do it one layer at a time, folks. So we just defined that the residence is in the District of Columbia. Okay, we defined that. Well, let's define trade or business. The term trade or business includes the performance of the functions of a public office. That means a government employee. 26 CFR 31.3401, employee. The term employee includes every individual performing services if the relationship between him and the person for whom he performs such services is the legal relationship of employer and employee. The term includes officers, employees, whether elected or appointed of the United States, a state, territory, Puerto Rico, or any political subdivision thereof, or the District of Columbia, or any agency or instrumentality of any one of the more or foregoing. Do you live in the District of Columbia? Do you work for any government agency? Then you want a tax pay. We just simply, very simply, showed you that our government is based on what? Fraud. Which means we're living under what? Anarchy. Lawless. Want of government, a state of society when there is no law or supreme power, when the laws are not efficient and individuals do what they please with impunity. Political confusion. What do I mean by they do what they want with impunity? Because guess what? Here soon I'm going to get a call from an agent that works for this IRS company. Do you think they're going to know these laws? No. And I have told you time and time again, and I'm going to continue to tell you, that if you do not put knowledge as your first and foremost thing to protect yourself, you will be found wanting. This system is corrupt as corrupt can get, and it is based upon the fact of keeping you a slave, Neo, and that's what it's based on. I have said many times before that I am maniacal. Enmians, that's from the Latin enmians, unfriendly. I'm not a friend of the system. Matter of fact, I have the disposition or temper of an enemy of this system. I'm about my Father's business. Applied to private enmity, as hostile as to public. The private individual is hostile to what? The public. That's a definition in Webster's 1828 Law Dictionary. To this system of men which uses fraud to convert, understand this, I know I laid a lot of terms out there for y'all. It's fraud. So by their law, by their definition, they have committed what to this entire country? Deceit and fraud. What is the worker of iniquity working? Deceit, fraud. And they have committed this fraud to convert each and every living man and woman into a slave. Here's the sad part, folks. Babylon's never gone anywhere. Babylon is judgment for the people wanting to do their own will. We have used their definition, their codes and statutes to define their law, and this, my friends, is the house built upon the sand. No foundation with truth, zero love of knowledge, and zero perception of reality. What I just showed you was through the IRS tax code, the CFR, the UCC Uniform Commercial Code, and the definitions from their book. You and everybody else in this room has never once been obligated to pay a tax. So why have you? Because by what? They conveyed to you, they implied, and they assumed that you knew. Because ignorance of the law is what? It's non-admissible. But yes, it's still done by fraud, but you got to prove it. You see how that works? Now tell me listen folks, this is some of the smartest people in the world that built this system. They are evil and wicked. It's evil and wicked men that continues to help it run. Folks, it's paramount when your foundation is built upon the rock. You cannot be swayed. You cannot be deceived. You cannot be fooled. He that hath my commandments and keepeth them, it is that loveth me. And he that loveth me shall be loved of my Father, and I will love him and will manifest myself to him. Judas saith unto him, not Iscariot, Lord, how is it that thou wilt manifest thyself unto us and not unto the world? And Yahushua answered and said unto him, if a man love me, he will keep my words, and my Father will love him, and we will come unto him and make our abode with him. Well, what's your part of the covenant, folks? What's your part of the contract for that you to be the abode? It's right here. Segue into our final discussion, James 3:13. Who is a wise man endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out of the good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not and lie not against the truth. This wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish. For where envying and strife is, there is confusion in every evil work. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality, the sin of partiality, and without hypocrisy. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace. That's staying in honor. Honor and integrity, these are parts and parcels to what we're talking about here. John 5:41, I receive not honor from men, but I know you that you have not the love of Yahuwah in you. I am come in my Father's name, and you receive me not. If another shall come in his own name, him you will receive. First part of that, I receive not. I seek no honor of men. Don't want it. Nor am I going to honor some man like he's the Father. Not going to happen. International law of customs. Customary international law. Remember, folks, what do we operate under? Are you operating under the Constitution, folks? No, sir. The only Constitution is for the administration of the government. That's why you're paying taxes. It's not free. It grants you zero rights. But what we are operating under is the ability to contract and international law. Well, international law operates under customs, and that's part of the basis of international law. So, what do I mean by customs? Along with general principles of law and treaties, custom is considered by the International Court of Justice, Juris, the United Nations, and its member states to be among the primary sources of international law. Well, let's break that down. Why do you think the purpose of this agenda is to remove everyone from their homeland and destroy the customs of that country, that tribe, that people? Because once you do that, what is left? Just international law. So, with that, let's get into the paradigm shift. And this is a rebuttal to some both sides of the fence that I get aggravated with because they want to bait me into one of these sides, picking a side. Right? It's not going to happen. A paradigm shift ahead for those who are willing to face the truth. Both black Hebrew, pay attention to the words, and white nationalists, and I'm going to say this right now, are controlled opposition with only half-truths. Why? They both have it right that nations and customs of people are important, but neither of them know their true identity. And what I mean by that is if you are white or black and believe that how much melanin you have or don't have makes it to where I or anyone else needs to worship you, you are mistaken. The customs and identity of all nations. Let's define the word nation inside the Black's Law Dictionary. You want to know why they keep making melting pots everywhere, bringing everyone? They're destroying identities. Nation, a people, or aggregation of men existing in the form of an organized jural society, usually inhabiting a distinct portion of the earth, speaking the same language, using the same customs, possessing historic continuity, and distinguished from other like groups by their racial origin and characteristics, and generally, but not necessarily, living under the same government and sovereignty. Well, here's the fight, folks. Why do you think they keep making these melting pots like America? They're destroying the what? The continuity of a culture. And I'm going to make this simple statement. Extremism is always COINTELPRO. What do I mean? What is COINTELPRO? That's infiltration by the FBI, CIA, and all these other alphabet agencies to make people pick a side and not use their intellect. You have no idea who you are and you're trying to make a movement. Now listen, folks, what is the purpose of this white nationalism and black Hebrew movement? Are we just going to jump up, relocate all the blacks in this world to somewhere they want to go? The whites are going to jump? No, folks, it's done. What is your real purpose? Do you want somebody to worship you because you're white or black? Well, that sounds like an internal issue within you. I receive not honor from men, and I will not give honor to men because they have melanin or a lack of melanin. I want to know your what? Your deeds, actions, who you are. When I find out that you're my brother, you are my brother indeed. John 7:24. Judge not according to appearance, but judge what? Righteous judgment. Anybody telling you you can't judge? That's a lie. You gotta judge by fruits. I can't judge your heart though, whether you're convert or not. But your fruits and your actions, once you display those, I can make a judgment that you are or aren't. We should all be focused on exposing this fraud.